I've done a ton of fun things with my car this year. This F90 M5 has been fantastic for hill climbing, track days, even doing a standing mile down in Beeville, Texas. But I started to notice a problem. When I look inside the grates for the radiators and for the charge coolers, it is absolutely full of bugs, rocks, dirt, and I couldn't figure out a good way to clean it out. I tried hitting it with compressed air and using my shop vac to get all that stuff out of there, but I only got a little bit. I realized I'm going to have to just jack the car up and do it the hard way. Fortunately, it's a little easier to take the fender liner off of these cars than it has in previous models. Everything is an 8mm fastener. The charge coolers are all right there, and it's pretty easy to get to the hardware in there. So my first attempt at this was just give it a little bit of a spray with the pressure washer and see how much stuff I could get out of it. As it turns out, there was quite a bit. I just put a piece of cardboard down on the garage thinking I wasn't going to use all that much water. And when I started to realize just how much stuff was coming out of there, I had to rethink it a little bit. Now, one thing you'll probably see is people telling you not to use a pressure washer on a radiator. And that's for good reason. If you're not careful with it, you can end up bending the fins. I happen to use one with an angled head, variable pressure, so I can turn it down, and I also have a 45-degree nozzle that has a wider spray pattern. What I'm doing here is moving the radiator back a little bit so that I can let the rocks and bug guts drain out from underneath where the edge of the cooler protection assembly is. This is what it looked like, and keep in mind I'd already sprayed it out, and I was still getting all that stuff out of the charge cooler. On the driver's side here, I haven't taken the liner out yet so you can see what I'm working with. The screws are all 8mm. They're split at the top so that you don't have to take the entire liner out, which is nice. There's a screw over there on the right by the brake line that you have to pay attention to. Then you need to get into this duct here, make sure you've taken the screw out, and then pull back on the duct so that it pops out. It has a small finger on the side of it that will help you realign it when you're reinstalling it, but that one's easy to take out. It may be a little stuck because of the dirt. Pulling the liner out is pretty easy. You just need to undo the screws, pull the brake duct out, and then you can get in there and pull the liner out. Once I got up here, I started thinking about how to remove this. One of the under trays can be removed as well, just on the corner. You don't have to take the whole thing out. It's just held in with 8mm screws on the edge of the bumper, as well as connecting it to the under tray in the middle. Once you have everything out of the way, you can start working on taking the radiator itself out of its bracket. So behind what we're looking at here, there is another 8mm screw, and then that torque screw that I'm pointing out right there also lets you release the bracket. Be careful when you're pulling that out, but once you get it out, you'll see the protective cover on it, and you'll be able to see the full duct. And in my case, you'll get to see the huge amount of insects and dirt that's collected on it. What I'm using on the back of the charge cooler here is a coil cleaner intended specifically for radiators. The front side I covered with 3D brand Detailer Bug Remover. Both seem to work pretty well, and after a while and some light brushing, I got a really disgusting looking soup of bugs, and I realized that I needed to take this one's cover off completely and wash it separately. I even got to the point where I was pulling the bugs off by hand. Of course, I'm wearing gloves, but you do have to be very careful if you're touching or brushing these because, again, they will bend easily. And if you do end up bending them, having to straighten them out is pretty tedious, but it's doable. Once I got all of that cleaned out, I turned my attention to the oil cooler. The oil cooler on this car is simply exposed to the air underneath. So if you've heard people talk about putting rock guards there, There's a good reason for that. You can see the water blows straight through the cooler there. The rest of this was just cleaning out every other radiator, letting it dry out, and then sucking stuff out with the shop vac. And although I got the worst of it, I think at some point in the future I may have to take the radiator cover off and then use a wand to pressure wash it from the back. After I was finished, I was pretty happy with the results. I didn't get everything, but it's a whole lot cleaner than it had been. I think that the main downside of the design they used is that these holes that we're looking through here are a bit big. They don't do a very good job of stopping rocks and other large objects such as bugs from getting in there, and then it's compounded by not being able to clean it out very easily. If this stuff is helpful, let me know in the comments and subscribe to the channel because I'll be doing more of this kind of thing.